we've started.
They were like, oh, these dumb bitches can't get this together.
I know. I said earlier when we were doing the download of the software, I was like, this is the Rachael and Krystyn show. It doesn't have a title. We're just going to talk about random shit and be cool. And you guys are going to listen to us. We're going to make millions of dollars.
I feel like I had some ideas for names.
Okay.
And I forgot them all.
Cool. Just like your cord.
Just like my cord.
I haven't thought about it, but I do feel like I need to write that down. This is really, it'll be interesting to see if they can pick up on the, whatchamacallit.
Can you hear the sirens?
Yeah.
And can you hear
Stevie
the dog?
snoring. She's going to start snoring like here shortly. So
yeah, she's huffing down there.
Podcast name. I just want it to be catchy. So people, but also catchy and descriptive at the same time.
Should our podcast just be, I want it to be catchy?
Or we should just name it the #1 podcast. That's not descriptive though.
It's not.
Like, how do we describe us doing a podcast where people are going to be like, yes, I want to listen to that? Because like there's some out there that people know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, it's so interesting because if you're in the podcast space and you listen to podcasts, you know of certain podcasts like Dax Shepard's is Armchair Expert.
Yeah.
But that's not really descriptive of like who he is. You just know the title, but it's like catchy enough that it's easy to remember.
I think that there is something to be said for having something that's catchy. I mean, I think he's also a celebrity already. So
yeah, I mean, he had like a following. But yeah.
But like if you're looking at like being recognized on platforms, then having more description in your title, I don't know. I guess we just have to make a decision. Like, are we going to name it for like what we're going to like, or are we going to name it for?
I don't know. I just want it to be real.
I do too.
And like funny. And even though Charles and Jeffrey are husbands, they think that they have come up with some, well, mostly just Charles thinks he's come up with some really good catchy titles.
He thinks all his ideas are super great.
Yeah. Though they're funny, I don't want to be like known in my community being associated with a sex toy on a podcast.
Okay. But I don't remember. Okay. The first time that he came up with this idea of the name, I don't remember the dildo being included. Now, all of a sudden, every time he says it, and a dildo is included in the title.
Yeah, well, I no, because the first one was definitely the womb room because we wanted to talk about the fact that like we are both moms and wives, and I guess that just associates vaginas.
Yeah, he was like, live from the womb room. Well, because we're in your she shed.
Oh, we are in our she shed. It's our she shed.
Oh,
see? When we're doing the podcast, it's our she shed.
Or is it our womb room?
Or our womb room. So the other day, I wanted to sage too, but maybe we'll do that in a little bit. The other day I was having a meeting with the woman who did my Reiki session, my awakening Reiki session.
Yes, I want to talk about
We were just meeting up more from like a mentor business and also for me to thank her so much for the work that she did because it was so incredible and informative and helpful. And I wonder how often this is going to happen, but I totally lost my train of thought. So
you were having a meeting with the lady that did your Reiki.
Yes. I know, but it was tying back to like Charlie and the womb room and the she shed. That's right. Okay. So we were on Zoom, I have this background, which is what people can see now too. She was like, the energy in that room is incredible. And I was like, oh yeah, this is my she shed. And she was like, yeah, there's like orbs and, folks with you. And I was like, oh, that's so great. I'm so happy.
Exciting. Did she give you any more info about who's in here?
No, but we weren't having like a session, right? Gotcha. Like sometimes when you have spirit sessions, like you have to like prepare for that and, do certain things. It was more like from a business mentorship perspective where I asked her if she had some available time and she said she did. And so we set this up for half an hour. And then I just really wanted to thank her because I think it's probably somewhat of not a thankless profession, but at the same time, when you have a Reiki session like I did, where it had past life regressions come through and some medium, there wasn't a ton of spirits that came through. Naturally, my childhood dog that comes through on every medium reading I've ever had, but like it was more just so introspective and helpful from that regard that I really wanted to just like praise her and thank her. And because she didn't know a lot of the stuff that had gone on before that was like leading up to why I got the Reiki session.
I love that about you so much, that you have such a grateful heart and that you just wanted to like share all of this with the Reiki lady. What's her name? Can we have?
I think we can share. Yeah. Her name's Nisha.
Nisha. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we should ask our listeners, our thousands and millions of listeners that we're going to have when we launch this podcast, to help us with a name.
I think that's a great idea.
But it can just be the Krystyn and Rachael show.
It can be.
Like, we don't have to like overthink this.
That's true.
The K and R show. R and K. RKS.
T and A.
T and A. The P and the V. So do you know about the P and the V? So we all know what that stands for, right?
Yeah.
And then I moved down here to my lovely community, Peters Township.
1 million light years, 10,000 light years away
10
from
light
us.
years away. So the abbreviation for Peters Township School District is PTSD. So there's that.
Oh.
And then the elementary school that the children go to is Pleasant Valley. So it's the P and the V. And I was like, what in the actual F? Like, why am I surrounded by acronyms that...
The P and the V.
Like, PTSD? I mean, I know that... I don't know if it existed back when Peters Township School District came around, but like...
I mean, it had to have, right?
On some level.
Yeah.
But I feel like PTSD is kind of like autism, where it's like...
More normalized.
And like more known now, and like educated and studied and communicated about, right? Like, naturally, PTSD has existed since the time of human creation.
Yeah.
But like having like a diagnosable mental health and highlighting mental health. Oh, highlighting mental health. I'm so glad we are doing that.
I am too.
Like, genuinely happy that we continue to shed light on that. That will never...
I mean, do you remember when we were middle school, high school?
Oh, yeah. Even my parents' age, right? Like, parents would just be like, oh, she's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, no one was diagnosed. I mean, so funny story. Not funny, but interesting story. Jeff's father was originally married to a different woman. That's the mom of his sister and brother.
Okay.
Legit, she was schizophrenic. And this is in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So, like, but it was undiagnosed because they didn't know what schizophrenia was. And so George was in the military, Jeff's dad. She was schizophrenic, had 2 kids. Having babies does not necessarily always help mental health.
Yeah.
And he had to be honorably discharged because he had to take care of his siblings because she couldn't. And there was really nothing they could do. There was no medication at the time to give to like schizophrenic people. And like there were homes that you could put them in, but like if you could afford it. So she basically just lived by herself until, I don't know, like sometime in the 80s or the 90s when they got her on meds, which is, it's so sad. I know. And she's like, now she's fine, but I mean, she's in her 70s now. So like,
is it like progressively gotten worse or better as she's aged?
No, it's been fine. I think I'm pretty sure this is one of those things we should probably be like, we're going to talk about mental health. We should do research.
Yes.
I think that the medication that she's been on has stabilized her in the sense that she's like a functioning human and she doesn't like have manic episodes or anything. I think it's kind of at like bay, right? Like she knows it exists, but it's like anything else, like acknowledging that you have something and then being proactive about it's half the battle anyways. So I think she's on medication for life for sure, but
I mean, that's wild. I can't, like, if you think about having multiple children, which you have, and then you add on the stress of a loved one being gone, and then add mental health issues on top of it.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
That's,
Yeah. And then
it's
the
like
resources that exist either are so painfully difficult to get into and get a hold of or understand. It's not, highlighted in a positive light in most circles. Naturally, there are circles that highlight it. And so, if you have that community to support you and to do those things, that's awesome. But a lot of times it's like they don't even know where to turn.
Especially that generation, like you were saying.
Well, and it's still so stigmatized.
Oh, hugely. Both of my parents would not ever go to therapy.
No, I've talked about that too with my parents and just like generational things that happened. And I'm sure everybody has families that they're, I always feel like people are like, oh, well, my family. And it's like, no, that's everyone's fucking family. Like everyone has shit. And
1,000%.
The more you talk about it, it's like, oh, really? And, my grandparents on both sides, I mean, on some level would be considered, some of the things my parents went through would be considered child abuse for sure. Verbal and physical, where it's like, I know when we were growing up, my dad would never consider using a belt to punish us. Wooden kitchen spoon from time to time, sure, pop on the butt, but never a belt.
Yeah.
Because that's what was used on him, and it was not good.
How old's your dad?
My parents are both 68.
Okay, that makes sense, because my dad was like of the belt era, but he also was 81.
Yes.
So,
and it's crazy because now you think about it and I'll be like, well, that was child abuse. And my dad's like, well, it's just the times. And I'm like, also child abuse of the times and child abuse, the verbal, I think, abuse too.
Oh, the emotional abuse was so rampant.
Yeah, really bad.
I mean, and still.
And that was a past generational thing too, where it was passed down where, my grandparents too, there was things that happened with them that, they were just told, this is the way it is. Like, you're not going to talk back. You're not going to do certain things after,
Yeah. I feel like this leads us down a road, though, where, at least for me, and I think you probably fall into this category too, breaking generational chains and trauma.
Totally.
Is so important to moving forward.
Yes. Yep.
And I feel like there's a spiritual connection and tapping into your ancestors there.
Yep.
To help do that.
Right.
I've definitely had.
Especially since they're the root of why we're still in it.
Well, too, and like from a spiritual perspective, if they have been like watching over generations after them repeat the same cycles and mistakes and, different mistakes, I feel like there's just another level of guidance there that we can tap into. Yeah. And I've had a couple of experiences through like Reiki and, other like spiritual experiences where I did feel like a very physical disconnection from, pieces of that trauma. Yeah. If you're in the right headspace and physical space.
I think too, spirituality coupled with mental health, I think is going to start to become more and more of mainstream. At least that's my hope. I know anybody I've talked to since I had a Reiki session, I've been like, do you know what Reiki is? Oh, let me tell you about Reiki. It's working with energy, like, and explaining it. And they're like, oh, that sounds so fascinating. It sounds amazing. Because I feel like to do that and to heal emotional and spiritual wounds, sometimes it's actually easier than I think we may think it might be. Not every time, but like if you're dealing with real trauma from this life where you're having to like walk through some hard shit and relive it, it's different than if you like pull through a past regression that you have an emotional imprint from it, but you didn't actually like in this lifetime physically walk through it. So you don't have like as much of a connection to it, Yeah. But I feel like when you have that spiritual side to your healing journey, you're not alone. And I think that's half the battle for a lot of folks is just, I know that for me, that's why I wasn't making some major decisions in my life sooner, because I just felt so by myself in it. And I didn't know who to talk to or who to like vent to. But when you know that you have your angels and your spirit guides and folks that are actually like looking out for you, that you don't feel like you're by yourself.
And I think the power of intention in those moments is so powerful because especially when you're talking about like past regressions and traumas that you didn't necessarily live in the physical sense, just finding the right words and intention behind how you want to move forward and recognizing that can release so much.
Oh, totally.
And just help propel you forward. To your point about being like surrounded by the right environment to do it, I know for me, when, I have some like very real traumas from, this human experience I'm having right now, I feel like I wasn't able to truly move past some of them until I met Charlie. I was in an environment with someone who fully supported and loved me and I trusted is just my person.
Yep.
Right? Like he unlocks a part of me that I thought was like a bad part of me. Like
Totally.
the silly, like that part of me is like such a big part of me. But for a long time, I was
diminishing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was told otherwise, right? That it was not something to be celebrated. It was something to,
you're too emotional.
Put away in a closet, right? And so being able to unlock that gave me an opportunity to really heal from a lot of those past wounds.
On top of also being a woman.
Yeah.
Most women don't go around diminishing people, right? But like a lot of men do it. And and I don't know what the clinical word for that is, but like going around telling people you're not strong enough or you don't do this good enough. Or, for me, it was in the professional setting, it was you're too emotional because I can cry. I'd be a great actress because I can cry like very easily. But that's just because that's just how I'm wired. And I'm so connected to that part of me. And for a long time, I'd be like, you need to be stronger. You can't cry. Like, don't you fucking cry, Rachel. Don't do it. And now I'm kind of like, just feel whatever it is that your body needs to feel. And it's more of an empowering thing for me now because a lot of times in these professional corporate settings, it was appropriate to yell or get angry or get mad. Not appropriate to cry, but you could yell and get angry. And I'm like, dude, getting angry and yelling at another person is a form of emotion.
Like, why is that so much more widely accepted than somebody allowing themselves to feel? Stevie's like, listen, you guys,
I'm just
napping is
dream and
really where
I don't know. I don't know how these things happen. I don't know how they get passed down. I really just feel like, and it's disgusting behavior too. Like, I don't know. My goal most of the time is to make people feel heard and to listen. And on the flip side of that, also be listened to and not diminished.
Yeah.
Which could trigger definite emotional reactions. But I'm just so over the whole, like, you're so emotional. Yeah. Who fucking cares? Yeah. Like, that's awesome.
And it's not, I don't even like the term you're so emotional because, like, your ability to tap into that part of yourself is like a leveling up.
Well, totally. Most people can't.
Like, exactly.
Most people, if you're like, how do you feel today? Good.
Yeah, they're just going through the motions. They're not feeling anything.
No, right. Like, going back to mental health too, in our society, there's a time and a place for everything, right? So I'm not diminishing that medication shouldn't be a part of someone's protocol if it's medically deemed that they need it. But we are so easily subscribed to, oh, you need a pill for this. And especially with emotions make people feel uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But like when you start taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety, part of that medication goes into from a science perspective, goes into your cells and blocks your cell receptors from having any sort of emotional connection to things. And like, we base decisions on our emotions. We base everything we do on how we feel about it on some level. Now, whether or not you're like in tune to that is okay, fine. And that's also a generational thing too. I think it's like you've been taught you have to mask it. You can't feel, or, especially for men, you have to be strong. You can't, you can't cry. If you cry, then that means you're weak. And I'm like, the fuck it does.
Right.
That does not mean weakness at all. Just means you're a human. Cry. It's cool.
It's okay to cry.
Get comfortable feeling all the different types of emotions, right? Like,
should we start a tally of like, oh, it's been this many days since I cried? Like, like on the freeway when it's like we've had, it's been this many days since we've had an accident.
Yes. Oh yeah. Like a workman's comp.
Yeah.
We could totally do that.
I cried today.
I'm actually going to start one for Jeff. It's funny though, because too, since we've been together, and for those of you who don't, this is like the first time of many things that we'll be talking about, but Jeff and I started dating in 2008. And so we've been together for 15 years. This is going to be our 15th year. It's interesting to see how people change over time, by being influenced by their partner. He's definitely more attuned to his emotions and feelings.
Emotions.
It's emotions. It's a ritualism. Emotions and feelings. Emotions.
You just named our podcast.
I just love that.
I'm just going to
so
say
much.
that anytime.
What?
You just named our podcast.
Emotions?
Yeah. Anytime you say something ridiculous, I'm just going to say,
God.
You just named our podcast.
Well, you know, Rachelisms exist for... I just combine words or I make up words completely.
Yeah, we call it Charlie speak in our house for him.
Yeah. It's a creative side of my brain where I can't get the words out fast enough. So I just...
All right, so back to Jeff's emotions.
Jeff's emotions. But he's way more attuned to using his words to express himself too when there's a disagreement or an argument or raising our kids. Or now that he's coaching too, it's interesting to see, you want to talk about touching that little like heartstrings right there? Mm-hmm. Kids can pull that out real fast, you know, which I love to see. I think a man that can show a gamut of emotions is so sexy.
Yeah.
Like so sexy.
Agreed. I love that about my husband.
There's nothing like, I'm like, let's go.
Mm-hmm. I know.
That 3-year-old just made you cry. Meet you in the bedroom.
Right. I know. Take your clothes off right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we have those moments too where I like see Charlie just being such a great dad. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's fucking go.
Jeff said the other day they had the first wrestling practice of the season. And this is such a cute story. You know, it's all about learning the foundation of wrestling and not so much competitions and not so much actually live wrestling. It's more like, how do you get into the perfect stance and how do you perfect these basic moves and, you know, how do you navigate on the mat and doing all these different exercises, right? So at one point, Jeff was like, okay. And he had all first years. So these are kids that have never wrestled. They're like kindergarten, first grade, and up. I mean, Emmeline was there too. So like there's a bunch of different kids, different ages. He was like, all right, get into your best stance, or somebody show me your best stance. And this kid like raised his hand and Jeff was like, okay, let me see it. And he got up and he started dancing because he thought he said, let me see your best dance. So Jeff's like, no, not dance with a D, stance with an S. And I was like, that is the best. Like, I was like, you're going to have to incorporate that throughout the whole rest of the season. All right. Is it going to be a dance or a stance? Do we know? Like the kids, like that's how you make memories, right?
Yeah,
and kids are so fun like that. And yeah, he told me that story and I was like, that's so sexy. You're so funny. But yeah, I think men with emotions. I'd like to see more men with emotions.
Wait, can we go back and talk about something?
Yes, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Orgasm October.
Okay.
How did that work out for you? Because you called us on like, I don't know,
the third
day.
Yeah,
third or fourth day of the month.
Yeah.
And
we
you
weren't
were
too
like,
far behind.
We're doing this. And Charlie was like, oh man, we're already going.
Yeah. Well, on October 4th was when I had my Reiki session. So, you know, sex kind of took a back seat. I don't think we really got off the ground with it. And I don't know how people do this. I don't know how they stick to these challenges where it's like...
where you have to participate in life and do all the things.
Yeah. And like, because it was, like Orgasm October.
Yeah.
Like everybody needs an O face. And for everyone listening, you could pleasure yourself or naturally have your partner pleasure you or pleasure each other. I mean, naturally, I think these things are, they're great in theory. I don't know who actually does it like religiously.
I mean, listen, you were so... I mean, this is not the first time that you have challenged us in this Orgasm October, which I think is hilarious. That this like keeps coming back every year,
and
it's
then
like
there's no follow through.
Yeah, I know.
No follow through. I mean, maybe if we like set a calendar and like, the other thing is you have to have somebody that like holds you accountable other than your partner, because I'm very good at being like, not tonight, bro. Like,
you need a sex accountability buddy.
Yes, it's like an accountant. You can only spend X amount of dollars every month.
You should. Okay, hear me out.
An assistant.
Do you have an Apple Watch?
No, I don't wear that stuff.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I don't have mine on. but they have like the fitness tracker and you can have friends on there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like a Fitbit. Jeff bought me a Fitbit.
Yeah.
He gets annoyed that I never
our
wear
friend Ashley, her and I are connected on there. So then I can just tap my watch whenever she has a workout and wish her, congrats, whatever. But I feel like there should be a metric on there for orgasms. And every time you have an orgasm, you can congratulate your friend.
That is a fantastic idea.
I think that would be great.
Why hasn't that actually happened yet?
I wonder because...
Apple,
are you
that
listening?
Is our idea.
Don't steal this shit.
Do not take it.
No. They track your periods, like your everything through Apple Health.
Yeah. Well, there are some like interesting apps out there. Naturally, I can't see it because it's up there. But there is like an app that like is for partners or lovers where it's like you can send each other like reminders to like, I think it's called like love notes or something.
There's a couple different ones.
I wonder if that would work. I think it should be more congratulated though, like fitness. Like you're training for a marathon.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You just had a sex marathon. Good job.
Yeah. And then we can share it with others.
The equivalent of 26.2 miles.
Oh, God. The other thing about that just made me think of it is like when people are like, how'd you lose weight? We just have a lot of sex. I'm like, that is not true. That is not real life.
Okay, then you're not eating anything because there's no way you're creating that big of a calorie deficit.
15 pounds? What kind of sex are you having? Like, that is not real life. That's just not real life. Like, even in the beginning of any relationship where you're having sex, like, a lot, yes, you're burning more calories, but like,
not that many calories.
Not that many.
I mean, I guess it depends on how long you're
I don't know.
Going for.
Maybe I'm just like a very boring person in bed, but like, I don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm like...
You feel wild and adventurous.
Yeah, but I also don't feel like after I got done, I was like, gotta go eat now. Like I had a workout. Like I just
carb up. We're gonna have sex later.
I mean, maybe if we have sex in like the middle of summer outside and it's
what?
like...
What does that have to do with it?
Like, because you sweat.
Oh.
Because you're sweating because it's so humid outside.
Why does this matter?
Because of the weather. It's the different environment. Sex in the different environments.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Perhaps that helps, right? I don't know.
Thermal sexing.
Also, no beach sex for me.
Sandy vagina.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Like, nothing about that is appealing.
But have you had ocean sex?
See, that's where it gets a little weird for me, too, because, like, you have water, but then you have your natural, like, lubricant, and then it just gets washed away by the water. Yeah. And how do you also... No, sex in a pool, yes. But there's no movement there. Like, I don't know how you have sex in the ocean.
Wait,
how does that work?
I feel like this is a conversation we have to revisit when we have the guys on the podcast because...
Okay, we'll write that down.
Charlie
Topics.
Definitely has a story that he shares. It's like his party trick about him and I having sex. And the first time he shared this in a public, not public
sex
setting,
ocean,
but
instead of ocean
he's a
sex.
teacher. I probably shouldn't talk about this.
Listen. He might not be a teacher after we make millions of dollars.
I mean, he loves what he does. He'll still do it.
He might want to still do it, but the school district will be like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, sir.
This is a conflict of interest.
We heard about your pool shenanigans.
Everybody knows about your sex life. That's why, isn't it interesting too? I know we have a hard time staying on topic, but like teachers that also do OnlyFans.
Oh, yeah, that's like a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, which on some level I'm like, yeah, absolutely not. Like, gross. You're teaching my first grader. What the fuck are you doing after? But then I'm also like, well, you're teaching my first grader during the day, doing a great job. I don't give a shit what you do outside of that. How do you know about, like, I don't know about OnlyFans. So how many pervert parents are out there being like, what can I look up on these teachers?
A lot. I saw somebody posted. Oh, I think it was the Mikey and Big Bob radio guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We're from Pittsburgh, 96.1. They've been around.
I think it was them that posted something on Facebook saying that Pittsburgh was just named in the top 10 cities of infidelity, marital infidelity.
I did see that, but I didn't like look into it more. But
well, I think that they took these stats from, because I was like, I have to know more about this. And the top 4 were like Miami, Las Vegas, and then I think it was like Orlando and Tampa. And the next 4 were like shitty weather spots, right? Like us, like Minneapolis and St. Paul and Buffalo and Cincinnati and Cleveland.
Does it have to do with the weather?
Well, yeah, I guess you need to go out and cheat on your partner in bad weather. I don't know. Maybe it's like their cure for seasonal affective disorder. But they did it, I think, based on the number of, what's that website? Ashley Madison or it's the website where people like go have accounts. The slogan's wild too.
High-end hookers? Are they high-end hookers?
No, it's like to cheat on your spouse.
What?
Yeah.
God, I live under a fucking rock. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
Cheating websites. Okay.
But I was like trying to figure out where these statistics were coming from. And it was coming apparently from the number of accounts based in those cities for that website.
Fascinating.
It's so crazy.
All right. Signing off. Until next time.
Toodaloos.
Yep. We should have an ending. See you later, alligator.
After a while, crocodile.
Yes.